What's up, YouTube? It's your boy, Sly8Fry here. So, I just saw that Scott the Wasp just uploaded a video today, which came as a huge surprise to me because last week, I think it was on Sunday, he premiered an hour-long video that obviously he had been working on for like a month or so, or longer, probably longer than that. And now he already has released another video. This time it's within the length that I have a preference for to make react videos to, just 17 minutes. So let's do this. Let's get this done because I gotta do this quickly because I gotta return to work pretty soon. I'm just taking a break from work to do this react video for everyone who's watching right now. And don't worry, I did take a break hours ago to spend time with my wife and have lunch with her. And we watched 2 episodes of Jane the Virgin. So I'm not just taking a break only for the YouTube. I'm taking a break for her too. I took a break for her too. Anyways, let's get started on Demakes by Scott the Wasp. This should be a lot of fun. Let's do it.
Hey all, Scott here. Imagine today's events occurring in the past. What would it be like to live in an era prior to this very moment?
Okay.
What am I going to say in 5 minutes? What the hell is this? Why is it good? We need to go a hint closer to utter dog shit. I said a hint. The year is 1987. This is what we call a video game. That was a short game of 20 questions. At the time, things could only go up graphically. They were trying all kinds of 3D styles. Some games you could hear crystal clear sound in with voice acting, and other games were movies you could slightly interact with. The future was looking bright. Imagine what video games will look like 30 years from now. Holy f***, it's wider! What's the main driving force behind new video game consoles? Better graphics. I'll let you shoot me in the foot if you look nice. We all want our video games to look better each and every generation. But sometimes it's fun not to care. The graphical style of older games were simpler, no doubt, but there was a certain magic to it. That old school Atari 2600 look. It's crude, it's not great, but there's something to be said about making the simplest of art understandable to the player, making it obvious to them that these are aliens in 4 pixels or less. It's oddly beautiful. Let the record show, I'm also legally blind. But when we move into the 8-bit and 16-bit eras, these are much easier to find worth in. A similar style of making the most out of limitations, but this feels more like actual art somebody drew that was then squished into a cartridge. 16-bit art is so much better too. This was taking pixel art and adding so many more colors and details in the music of this era. Oh my god,
especially
it may be a bunch of bleeps and bloops, but it's all organized in such catchy and mesmerizing ways. Again,
Whoa. The Super Nintendo has music that actually sounds like real music. A lot of the games do. They don't just sound like bleeps and bloops. That's the NES. On the Super Nintendo had amazing sound quality for the time.
So cool how they would make something so beautiful out of something so limiting. And due to how simple things were, it was easier to immediately understand what make these games tick. Modern games are so full of cutscenes and 3D eye candy that it can sometimes distract you from the core of the game, which might not be that great. Because of this, the style of older games has never really died out. Not only because less powerful handheld systems kept 2D pixelated jargon alive while the home consoles tried shoving f***ing polygons down our throat, but because people legitimately like these art styles, this music, these simpler, more get-to-the-chase type games. It doesn't just remind people who peaked in high school of better times. Some just like this kind of stuff. The problem is, most think older games look outdated. And 99% of the time, they would be correct. So to get modern gamers to play the classics, you might just have to remake them, giving them new visuals with all kinds of crazy effects, a fully orchestrated soundtrack, even more content. But like I said, many still value this older style of game, while some want these older games to be recreated for the modern age. What if we took this modern thing and tried to recreate it using this rock?
What? What are you talking about?
This is a demake, remaking a game on worse and/or older hardware, possibly generations older.
Yeah, people do that sometimes.
Made in the style of older titles. It's interesting to see how a modern game works when it's met with the limitations of living in 1994. It doesn't. Most demakes are fan-made. Makes sense. If Nintendo isn't going to put Smash Brothers on a Game Boy, damn it, I'm gonna. One of the most famous examples of this is Halo 2600, a demake of Halo for the Atari 2600. Now, to be fair, this is a more completely different game in comparison to straight-up playing Halo on Atari. You can't even begin to port these graphics over. Well, we can do the color green. No, this is turning the concept of Halo's story, characters, and some of the gameplay and trying to make it work as an old-school Atari game. It's pretty neat to think about how you recontextualize things that have only ever been seen in first-person 3D into a 2D sprite, and not just any 2D sprite, a bad one. However, I think what made this game truly famous in the Demake realm was the fact it was made by one Ed Fries. He was actually the vice president of Microsoft's game publishing division up until 2004. So can you really consider this a fan-made Demake when it was made by a Microsoft employee who worked with the Halo series? Well, this is far from official. Fries released this in 2010, 6 years after he left Microsoft, and even if he was still working at Microsoft when he made this, it was just a hobby project to attempt to make a Halo game for the Atari 2600. But it's more official than pretty much any other unofficial Demakes, so you gotta give it credit. I think the Atari Demakes are pretty interesting because I feel like you can make most games conceptually work on an NES or SNES with little issue. I mean, they would look and play wildly different, but I could fully imagine Demakes of The Last of Us and Dark Souls on those platforms.
Yeah, it would be like the original Legend of Zelda, or even the other Legend of Zelda games, like on the Link to the Past on Super Nintendo or Link's Awakening on Game Boy. Instead of this 3D view, it'd be top-down view, looking down. And which reminds me, I actually at a video game store up in Lake County called the Game Hub, which is an awesome place. I found a Switch game for a discount price, $45 to get what's it called, Dragon Quest XI. And when I looked up the settings were either to have it in the modern 3D graphics or to actually have it in a 2D top-down view. So I could choose either one in this awesome RPG. So I thought that was pretty cool to add that touch.
Consoles can produce high-quality gameplay and stories. Atari is a different beast. You pretty much have to rethink a game and turn it into a high-score kind of deal. But fans have shown loads of talent by producing demakes of Super Mario Bros. And The Legend of Zelda. Mario is pretty impressively close. Zelda has more in common with a loading screen, but these are fan creations, the video game false prophet. What about official demakes? Well, they aren't the most common, but when they happen, they really double dragon on Atari 2600.
Oh, gosh.
Gesundheit. You truly see the power of the demake with Atari. I mean, this thing runs on pencil lead. How are you gonna make Donkey Kong Jr. work on Atari? You don't. Now, Atari seems to be the furthest we can go back in terms of demaking, but how much simpler can we get?
Oh, no.
It's dangerous to ask me words. So you have Double Dragon on Atari or Double Dragon the LCD handheld game. Pick your poison. I feel that many would disagree with the notion that these are demakes, but if you consider Halo 2600 to be a demake, I think these fit the bill. This was the cheap alternative to buying a real man's handheld. The Tiger Electronics LCD games took the full name and branding of arcade and console games and made calculators out of them. These often are nowhere near replacements for the actual things, rather reinterpretations of the classics that can be displayed in a sticky notes worth of screen real estate. And damn it if that isn't a demake. The Tiger games are pretty gross. They take the bare minimum concept of these games and make this a high-score-based, overly simplistic romp that's just an endurance test. Hey, see how long you can use your thumbs. Nintendo had their own LCD games with the Game & Watch brand, in which they themselves converted their games over to. These, however, are much more well-designed. They're still simplistic, but there's more of an addictive challenge to these compared to what I found in a morgue. And when the game they were demaking for Game & Watch was too complicated for the LCD screens, they would make something entirely new for them, like with Super Mario Bros. And Zelda. The LCD demake is probably as low as we can go, unless you count charades. So, instead of pathetic, let's try for fucking bizarre, my new store. Sega hit it big with the Sega Genesis here in North America. With their previous console, the Sega Master System.
Not doing that well here.
Does it look like it would do well here? Maybe Brazil. The Master System was a long-lasting success in Europe and Brazil. They just loved gritted paper and failure. Well, the console ended in 1992 here in the States. It lived on for years longer in other regions, especially in Brazil, where it has yet to be officially discontinued.
Maybe they just forget.
But because of this success, remakes of popular Sega Genesis games were common for the platform. Sonic came over, though more so in specially designed games for the Master System. Streets of Rage, Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, because good versions of those games weren't good enough. But the demake I want to focus on here is Street Fighter 2. Yeah, Street Fighter 2 on the Sega Master System, because
was there an NES
does that sound good right about now?
Okay.
That hits the spot. Honestly, for a version of Street Fighter 2 on an 8-bit console, it's pretty good. I mean, character moves are missing, so it's not like a full-fledged port. It's not like this is the full Street Fighter 2 experience, just a little worse. Yeah, this banana was run over by my cart, but it's still the full experience. This simply does the job for Master System owners who wanted Street Fighter 2 and not much else. Graphically, I think this looks pretty damn good. Audioly?
Surprisingly, yeah.
I too enjoy making soundtracks with elevators. For what it's worth, Street Fighter 2 on Master System is fascinating. It only released in Brazil in 1997, and Capcom greenlit it because they were duped into thinking this was a Sega Genesis version of the game. The developer then revealed they were playing on the Master System, and they said, wow, this fucking stunk for the Genesis, but for the Master System, this could be worse. It was approved. Well, I'd rather play this than the Game Boy version, which that's its only a demake. The portable variant of a game was almost always lesser in every way. But just like Street Fighter on Master System, it could be worse. I think many Game Boy demakes are fairly impressive. I mean, DuckTales on this thing is damn close to DuckTales how God intended. Developers had to choose whether to make a version of the game designed with the Game Boy in mind, or just try to cram funny shit in the car. It's a balancing act. Would it really be easier to make a Lion King game for the NES, or just take the SNES game and downgrade the hell out of it? This looks unnatural. Like, I feel like if I would play this as a kid, I would still think to myself, this feels like a downgraded version of something that already exists. I mean, designing a game from scratch for a system is a lot of work, but it's also really hard to get the Lion King on SNES to run on the NES. You know the old saying. The NES got a few demakes. I'd consider Mighty Final Fight to be one of these. This is a Final Fight game made exclusively for the NES. It's a retelling of the first game's story, so I would consider this a demake. Take that, Senate. However, everything else is really this game's own thing. If you consider Final Fantasy VII Remake to be a remake, give Mighty Final Fight a chance. This is definitely more of a spoof on the original. They made all the characters children and built it entirely for the NES. It was definitely meant to give NES owners a Final Fight experience while also making sure it could stand on its own. So they made it a joke. I'm a proud NES owner. Mighty Final Fight is its own thing and isn't bogged down by the limitations of the console it's on. Rather, Capcom used the limitations to their advantage while creating this thing. This is how you do a demake, and it might not even qualify as one. That's why we go back to the Game Boy line with Game Boy Color and Advanced demakes.
Yeah.
Finally, I can play Grand Theft Auto portably. I never said I was happy with my life. For some reason, developers constantly tried to take these big console experiences
and top-down views to
shove them on the GBC. Resident Evil was being worked on, and while it was canceled, looking at what was accomplished, it's impressive and concerning. Think about how advanced society would be if we didn't spend so much time porting Resident Evil to Game Boy. I mean, this looks like it's straight up Resident Evil, but what ended up releasing was Resident Evil Gaiden, something more original for the system. They still try to make it as full-fledged of an RE game as it could be, including this rhythm game combat mechanic to incorporate first-person shooting, which is honestly pretty clever. And of course, GTA 2. I'm sure not many people knew this was a thing, on top of the fact the first game is on here as well. In fact, that worked on the original Game Boy. These are like the coolest items at an antique mall. Absolutely jaw-dropping, but you couldn't pay me to lick them. These are really not great versions, but just the fact they even resemble a Grand Theft Auto game, I think is enough. Were you really expecting to pop GTA 2 into your Game Boy Color and be enthralled? No, this game was created with the intent of people saying Grand Theft Auto on Game Boy Color and nothing more. But thankfully, Grand Theft Auto on Game Boy Advance is another story. Yeah, most of the joy from this game comes from the fact I'm gutting people on 2 AA's, but this is a legitimate Grand Theft Auto with not a ton of concessions made. This wouldn't be considered a demake, however, considering it's a completely original entry in the franchise. Now, Pac-Man World, that just got diagnosed. The Game Boy Advance was filled with multi-platform games that were completely different from handheld to console. I was definitely expecting this to be a 2D platformer based on the PS1 game. Was I ever gleefully disappointed? Hey, they took the PS1 game and transformed it into a 2D sprite paradise. Is it better this way? Well, it depends on if you like dog shit. See, this is the biggest issue with demakes. It feels like you're punching down. Well, the Game Boy Advance version of Super Sponge isn't as good as the PlayStation one. Well, duh. Of course, what makes these games special is seeing how they convert elements that could only be done on the more powerful systems. Sometimes they whittle them down to their core. Konami couldn't really port the first Silent Hill to Game Boy Advance, or they could, they just knew it wouldn't be pretty. So they converted it into a visual novel, released only in Japan. See, while I would have loved to try Silent Hill on Game Boy Advance, we know it would have stunk. Sometimes developers have to make these calls. Should they demake the game for lesser hardware or create something more suited for it? Because even if they work on lesser hardware, I think I, alongside many others, care more about seeing it just exist, not necessarily if it's just as good or better than the source material. However, that can happen sometimes. DARKvald was a game, thanks for asking. One of the most forgettable and generic games from the Xbox 360 PS3 era. It was done by Capcom, but it was just so lifeless and lame. Just look at this cover, look at this name. Without the title, would anybody have gone, oh yeah, that's a DARKvald? It's just an underwhelming third-person shooter that completely got overshadowed by its spin-off on Nintendo DSiWare. Everybody has that more successful cousin. DARKvald Zero isn't necessarily a demake, but it has the spirit of one. The concept here is, what if DARKvald wasn't an original game? Turns out but it was a reboot or sequel to a lost Capcom NES game. You gotta hand it to them, they truly ran with this idea, even putting a fake history lesson in the electronic manual. Totally giving an excuse as to why it's on a dual-screen handheld, because it was on the PlayChoice 10 dual-screen arcade machine. They even got Jimmy Fallon in on the idea that this was, in fact, originally an NES game. When they break out the talk show host, everybody goes, oh sh**.
Definitely not
on
Jimmy
that
Fallon,
day,
but
all
that's
late night
fun,
with
though.
Jimmy Fallon viewers bought Darkvoid Zero. The game itself actually gives
Of
off a
course.
lot of 80s Capcom vibes. Comparing it to the real-life Darkvoid, it kind of feels like how Bionic Commando on NES compares to Bionic Commando on Xbox 360. What an insult. The NES style is prime for demake territory. It's more impressive to demake for Atari, but demaking a modern game for NES, well, it just might be playable. NAMCO demade Pac-Man Championship Edition, turning it into something worthy of being on an NES cartridge. It was included in Namco Museum Archives Volume 1, and Jesus Christ, it might just be better than the original. To be fair, the original Pac-Man Championship Edition is good, but its aesthetic reminds me so much of the superior Championship Editions DX and 2 that it's really hard for me to go back to it. Championship Edition on NES oddly feels fresher even though it looks ass old. It's so addictive, and I think having this gameplay more zoomed in makes everything feel faster. It legitimately feels like its own experience, and honestly, if I had to choose between the two versions, I'm going NES. Retro City Rampage originally started development as an NES remake of Grand Theft Auto. It's a good thing they changed course. While it's obviously inspired by GTA and NES games, the final release is more than that. It's not GTA, and
Nice
it couldn't
take.
run on an NES. Well, you could still look at it as a spiritual remake. The developer made sure you didn't have to look far for the actual one. Included in the Wii release is ROM City Rampage, a version of the game that runs on NES. Plus, they made a
Okay.
version for MS-DOS on a floppy disk. These people scare me. These are the fun
floppy
remakes.
disk?
They bring games to garbage hardware because... Now, downgraded ports, you could totally consider demakes. Doom on Nintendo Switch? Well, they technically did demake it, but that's not really too fun to discuss. Like, here's Rayman Origins on Xbox 360, now on Wii, now on 3DS. How did they do it? Oh man, they must have found the Gaussian blur effect. But the demaking spirit of going far back is still alive and well. Fans do it all the time. Final Fantasy VII on NES, Super Smash Bros. On
that's
Game
cool.
Boy, but even Nintendo does it. Their prototype for Breath of the Wild was an NES game. They made Breath of the Wild for NES, and then made Breath of the Wild. Well, this is just a remake. I mean, they are super guilty of demakes in general. Remember the great Nintendo 3DS Wii U ports of 2016 and 17? Yes, Hyrule Warriors Legends. It runs. This is disgusting. I have no idea how anybody played this game legitimately on 3DS. Of course, it runs better on new 3DS models, but so would molasses. Doesn't make it fast. I don't care. To me, this game just doesn't belong here. This gives off Lion King
Not
NES
just Mario
vibes. Just a
Maker
sense
1.
of this not belonging. Everything feels off. Super Mario Maker for Nintendo 3DS, I think, feels more justified, and it's still pointless. That's an insult to Mario Maker and an even bigger one to Hyrule Warriors. You can never upload stages with this version. You can
Yeah,
only
it's
play
stupid.
stages that were uploaded from the Wii U version. At the
So
very least, if they
stupid.
let you transfer stages you made to the Wii U to then upload, no, it'd still be stupid, but at least there would be a way. No, there's no point to any of this, though it's still very charming to see this game run on 3DS. I just love how they had to downgrade New Super Mario Bros. U from the Wii U to this platform when New Super Mario Bros. 2 was on it and looked fine. They could have used these
They
assets.
should have done
no,
that. They should have
it
done
doesn't look
that.
not fine enough. The New Super Mario...
See, after Super Mario Maker was released, and I found that the only play styles were, you know, Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers 3, Super Mario World, and New Super Mario Bros. U. I honestly thought for the if they were going to release a 3DS version, they should have had the play styles be Super Mario Land for the Game Boy, Super Mario Land 2 for the Game Boy, which I still hope they do that in Super Mario Maker 2, because Super Mario Land 2, it's a Game Boy game, but it's a damn good Mario game. Like, the sprites do look like Mario World, except 8-bit and not really in color. And the game is really good. It's got a map screen, and you get to choose which area you want to go to, how you want to progress through the game. It's awesome. So, it'd be perfect for Super Mario Maker 2. But if there was a 3DS version, but for the 3DS version of the first one, they should have included Super Mario Land, Super Mario Land 2, and New Super Mario Bros. The one for the DS, and I guess New Super Mario Bros. 2 on the 3DS. But I don't know. I guess that's too many New Super Mario Bros. Maybe instead they could have included like Donkey Kong for the Game Boy, or Mario versus Donkey Kong for the Game Boy Advance or something. But still, the fact that they made it be like literally the same game except with far fewer features just doesn't make sense to me.
Brothers U art style on 3DS is amazingly pixelated, and it's funny because this is the art style they chose to represent on the box. Obuchi and Yoshi's Woolly World is a great conversion. It looks and plays great, and I find it very charming how they converted the 3D world map into a 2D one. While the 3D map is cooler on the Wii U version, the 2D one on 3DS just flat out makes more sense. This is a 2D platformer after all. Regardless of if these are good versions of the games, Demakes are amazing. They may not be more fun to play, they may just be putrid.
I wouldn't call that Demake, it's a different game. The Donkey Kong Land games, sure, they have a lot of similarities to their counterparts in the Donkey Kong Country games, but ultimately they have completely different levels, although similar level styles, similar enemies. Bosses are similar-ish. I'd say they're different games. The only one I'd say is like the same as Donkey Kong Land 2 is way too similar to Donkey Kong Country 2. That's the one I don't really agree with that one.
See how a game as massive as Breath of the Wild would work on NES, or just seeing Hyrule Warriors do something it shouldn't? I love seeing games represented in a different way than the norm, and these demakes help you to appreciate the game design. Without all those fancy 3D graphics, most of these games still hold up at their core. In some cases, they can be better not bogged down with cutscenes and loading screens.
Yeah.
It gave us a chance to play Rayman Arena on the PlayStation 1. Yeah, this is weird. So Rayman Rush is a demake of Rayman Arena for PS1. It removes modes and just focuses on this racing game mode. That's it. But even though it released after Arena came out in Europe, it released before Arena did here in North America. So if you live in Ohio, is this a demake or is Rayman Arena a remake? What about Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition? This is a demake of Final Fantasy 15 for mobile phones. It uses a cutesy new art style and is played from a top-down perspective, but follows a shortened take on the same story. But man, they just oversimplified so much here. As a mobile game, it really likes it when you win, and the game just feels kind of mindless to me. At this point, you're better off just watching Final Fantasy 15 cutscenes on your phone. But then the demake got a remake with Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition HD.
What the fuck?
You can finally play this on Xbox One. Or play Final Fantasy 15, your choice. To be fair, there's merit to both of these games. A lot of people didn't like Final Fantasy 15, so you've got Pocket Edition, but a lot of people don't like Pocket Edition, so it's truly a matter of preference. Except on Nintendo Switch, where this is the only Final Fantasy 15 you've got. Because who needs bullshit when you have dog shit?
Okay, that was some weirdness. Actually, I kind of expected there to be more after that, but, alright, once again, another great watch by Scott the Woz. How many demakes have you guys played? How many demakes are you guys familiar with? Have I played demakes? I mean, I might have. I don't know if I'm that familiar with them. Personally, I wouldn't say Super Mario Land 2 is a demake. I think he was implying that it could be a demake of Super Mario World, but I think Super Mario Land 2 is still its own thing and really awesome. I don't know. Have I played a demake? I've probably played a demake. I just can't really think of them off the top of my head. But anyways, there were some pretty interesting ones there I didn't expect to see. The mobile version of Final Fantasy 15 didn't surprise me at all. It honestly didn't surprise me. I mean, what's odd is I recall the mobile version of Final Fantasy 15 being a city builders app. But I guess they actually made a mobile version of the actual Final Fantasy 15 where it plays just like the original game, but the graphics are reduced in its top-down view. Which I think that's pretty cool, actually, I have to say. That's pretty cool. I definitely don't think the mobile version of Sonic Forces would be a remake of Sonic Forces, because the mobile version of Sonic Forces is an entirely different game than the console and PC version of Sonic Forces. It's not the same game at all. The only similarities is that they have some of the same soundtracks. Well, that said, thank you so much for watching. Had a blast watching Scott the Woz once again. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Click that bell icon to have any notifications. Check out my playlist of other Scott the Woz React videos. I can't promise I'll react to every Scott the Woz video. Some of his videos are really long, and I just don't really have the time. But I did manage to react to his video last week that was an hour long, but I had to split into 2 videos because I just didn't have the time to watch the whole thing in one sitting. That said, this was a blast. Really enjoyed it. I'll bring this up again. I've brought this up a lot, but I'm still working on my Sonic movie review. I did upload a draft on Facebook, and I plan to have that draft uploaded here on YouTube at some point. I actually have it scheduled for a particular date, and if I'm taking too long to edit the video, I'm going to actually postpone when I schedule it. But regardless, when you see that draft uploaded, that means my official, fully completed video is coming up very soon. So, yeah, I just want to make the video look really good. Because the thing is, I haven't actually done a fully edited video in a long time, and I want to make a really good looking one that's a little more closer to professional quality, that I hope you guys will enjoy watching. And, anyways, that's coming. I've been working on it. I've just been busy with work, busy with spending time with my wife, and lately I've been a little busy with doing some React videos too, and I can't do that on camera. What am I doing? But anyways, that'll do it. Thank you so much for watching. This will conclude this React video. And the very, very few people who have seen my Retro Bowl videos on here on my YouTube channel, I'm not going to upload any more footage of that game. Barely anybody's watching it. Watching me upload footage of that game, like 6 views. There's no point. I'd rather just play the game my own time without recording anything. I might record some. If there are people out there who want to see me play Retro Bowl off my phone, though, I will indeed actually have some footage upload to Facebook in the future, but I'm not going to record every single game. I'll just, probably just do important ones or playoffs and stuff. Anyways, that'll conclude this React video. Look forward to that Sonic movie review I have planned, which is not influenced by any other reviewers. It's completely my own opinion. No influences. And look forward to some more videos coming in the future. Look forward to some more live streams as well. Thank you so much.